Welcome back, everybody. WHIP Radio in Philadelphia. Time in the WHIP studios is 11:18. Now joining us on the hotline to talk a little college basketball and some NBA hoops is the new head coach of Tulane, and that's Mike Dunleavy, senior coach. It's Zach Gelb here. Thanks for a few minutes, and how are you?
First of all, thanks for having me, and I'm doing great.
Well, thank you for coming on, and we appreciate the time today. So when I first heard the news, and we covered Temple here in the American Athletic Conference, that you were going to Tulane, I was very excited because I know your coaching background, and it's a very successful one. But I thought it was a bit interesting because of all your pro experience that you would take a college job, and we've seen some pro guys take college jobs over the years. So why'd you decide to take that Tulane job?
Well, first of all, a big influence on me was being around the Villanova program for the last couple of years with Jay Wright, and because my son Baker is the associate head coach of Villanova, and so I was up there a lot. And we have a granddaughter who's 2 years old, so I was up there even more. And I just got inspired by what they do and the kids they bring in and the impact they have on their lives. And I just decided that I'd really like to do this, even though I was still talking to some opportunities with the NBA. I thought, this would be special. It's something I think I would really enjoy doing. So I set out to work at it, and I guess I didn't really understand at first how the game was played. Most of the colleges are hiring search firms right now. So I then made the rounds, went to New York, Atlanta, Dallas, different search firms, and let them know that I was interested and, kind of got on their board, as far as guys who were out there that they might put in front of ADs. And so just recently, there was a job that I was interested in, and I called up a friend of mine, Fran Fraschilla, who went to my high school, Nazareth High School in Brooklyn. And we were talking about it. He says, hey, would you have any interest in, Tulane? And he mentioned another school as well. I said, yeah, no, I have a lot of interest in Tulane because I have some family there. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law who went to Tulane are there. I've been in and out of the city for a long time. I had a group. I was involved with a group that was trying to buy the Pelicans about 3 or 4 years ago. And I like the city a lot. I can see myself living there for the next 10 to 15 years. It's got a great campus, great school, great practice facility to attract players as far as improving their game. And they're in a great conference with great coaches and players. So, and all the games are on national TV. So virtually, as I was looking at it and checking off boxes, it came up great. So I had a meeting. Actually, I had a phone call first with the athletic director, Troy Denon, and then we met. Actually, wound up meeting in New York because I was up there for the Big East, watching Villanova play, and everything went pretty quickly, and we got it done.
So with your son, you've seen a lot of college basketball and even going back to your playing days, and the game has changed over time, obviously, but you just take a look at that conference. You mentioned that it is a great conference. They got a bunch of teams into the NCAA tournament this year, but how do you study up on the rest of the conference since you haven't seen every school play yet?
Yeah, I actually have because I was living in Fort Worth. I was living in Fort Worth, Texas, and my nephew was playing for SMU. So I was over at SMU watching. I saw a lot of the SMU games, and so I already had a pretty good knowledge of the conference.
So what stands out to you about this conference? And you have a lot of good teams in this conference, but they're still trying to find that consistent identity, Coach.
Well, I'll tell you this: if you go up and down the line, as far as coaches in this conference, pretty amazing. There's some great coaches in this conference. You've got one right there at Temple. You don't get much better than that. And then Larry Brown here, in SMU. As far as Nick Cronin in Cincinnati, and UConn, and just every place you go. Memphis just got a great new coach in Tubby Smith, and like you said, Kevin Ollie. Just amazing guys. So that's the one thing that stands out. So it doesn't matter who they get as players; they're all going to be competitive and basically be tough outs along the way.
So I think it's pretty easy to sell a team like Tulane just because of the atmosphere, but then selling the program is a whole different challenge. If you have a recruit and a recruit says to you, "Hey, Coach Dunleavy, why should I come to your university?" What do you say to that recruit?
Well, two easy answers. It depends who you are as a player. If you want to go to the next level, there's no other better guy to come to than me. As far as you're going to play in a pro system, and you're going to have an opportunity to go seamlessly from Tulane to any pro camp, and virtually know everything you need to know. The other part of it is the fact that I've also been a general manager in the NBA. I've coached 20 years, but I've been a general manager for 12 of those years, as well as coached them. And I've picked the most All-Stars in the NBA in the last 22 years, 5, and maybe one. DeAndre Jordan, who I drafted, could make it 6. And the good news is, what that says is that those guys that I picked, I could project them working in my system, and they were successful. So the same thing happens at the college level. And the other thing, if you look at all the free agents I've ever had, they've all gotten paid. Maybe not by me, all of them, but they've all gotten paid. And because I focus in on what they can do versus not do. So somebody's a 14-foot jump shooter, I get them 14-foot jump shots. And when they're doing things they do well, they're productive, they're happy, they're confident, and it shows up in the rest of their game as well.
It also can't hurt to sit that recruit down and have a good New Orleans meal and have some gumbo and all that stuff. I love New Orleans. I've been there before, Coach. You got to go to this place, Irene's. The food down there is just sensational, though.
Oh, yeah, no, it's amazing. You got to get in shape to come to New Orleans.
So some early morning practices then to maybe shed some of that weight off the players if they eat too much?
I'm talking about for the coach.
Okay. As we're talking to Mike Dunleavy, Sr., the new head coach of Tulane. So you actually played in Philadelphia for a brief stint to the team that drafted you, and you guys got to the finals that year. What did you remember about that Sixers final team, just taking a look back at it all these years?
Yeah, no, I loved that experience. The guys I played with were, just tremendous guys, and from obviously the backcourt with Doug Collins and Will Be Free, Henry Bibby. I just talked to Henry just yesterday actually, and then forward Steve Mix, Julius Irving, George McGinnis, and Caldwell Jones, Darryl Dawkins. Just a great group of guys. I tell you what, if you go back and you look at the offspring of that team, you could put together a pretty good NBA team. Mike Bibby, Mike Dunleavy, Kobe Bryant. I'm trying to think who else was somebody. Obviously Chris Collins, but there's some other. Harvey Catchings. Is he? I'm trying to think. Somebody else, but anyway, you get the gist. There's a lot of guys made it to their offspring made it to the NBA or high levels of college basketball. So they were a great group. I stayed in touch with those guys, for a long time. It helped me out. Unfortunately, the next year when I was with the team, the NBA wasn't doing so well financially, and they went from 12 men to 11. And so I was the only guy in the team without a guaranteed contract, and I got cut. I got picked up by the Houston Rockets, where I spent the next 5.5, 6 years. But still, it was a great year and change being with the Sixers.
What did you learn from some of those legendary players? Because you were a young kid at that time, and I'm sure you learned a lot of good information from some of those great names, like you mentioned, in a Dr. J.
Yeah, first of all, I was very fortunate. I played for a great college coach in Frank McGuire, so I was very well prepared to come into the NBA from a fundamental standpoint. But the experience factor of all those guys and work ethic, and as far as like Henry Biddy and I played one-on-one every day, and then I'd go back, and Doug Collins as well, and back and we didn't have the great practice facilities back then, and I'd go back to the Philadelphia Athletic Club at night and work out, because particularly when I wasn't getting a lot of playing time. But it was just great fun and great experience as far as learning different things. Gene Shue was the coach, and I thought he was one of the best I ever had as far as in a huddle, drawing up plays based on what the other team was doing. And so I took that away from one of the I didn't take something away from all your coaches, but that's the one thing I took away from Gene.
And this current Sixers group, they're a mess right now. They had the whole tank experience with Sam Hinkie. Hinkie resigned this season with that 13-page letter. Now the Colangelos are running that organization. Do you think the Sixers, as someone that has a pretty good eye for talent in this league and understand the league pretty well, do you think they're moving in the right direction now with Brian Colangelo as the new GM?
Well, I mean, I think the answer to that is yes, but from the standpoint of what they were doing, regards, stockpiling picks, and I like the concept was correct. I wouldn't have a problem with doing that. The part about it is that you have to make the picks, you have to get the players, and unfortunately for them, they had some injuries. I think Embiid is a big time player if he can ever get on the floor. You had those issues coming in, regarding injuries, but look, they have potentially 4 first-round picks this year, and if you get that right, then you're off to the races. It's a great time. Believe me, it's a great time to come in. You might get Embiid back, and hopefully you do get Embiid back, and he can play a full season next year, and then plus the potential of probably 3, but maybe 4 first-round picks.
What advice would you give to a young coach like a Brett Brown who's been around the block for a while, but then gets his first opportunity? And yes, they were tanking and they were trying to lose these games, but I don't think anyone could expected this process to go on for 3 years. So what advice would you give to a coach like Brett Brown, who I think is a pretty darn good coach myself?
Yeah, well, Brett's come from a great system. He's a real professional. Obviously, he's gone through some of the wars that maybe he hadn't expected to go through, but he's gaining a lot of really valuable experience in doing it. And the challenge of getting guys whose record is from a very early time in the season. You're not going to go anyplace. You're not going to be in the playoffs, but still getting them up every night to play hard and to compete. Basically, that's the only way you can really judge him, because there's nobody in this league that would tell you that he's got the talent that he should be winning more. So basically, how you would judge, Brett would be how hard are these players playing. And look, to me, not that I saw them every night, but to me, it looks like they play pretty hard.
Wrapping up with Mike Dunleavy, senior, the new head coach of the Tulane Green Wave. And you mentioned your son who's coaching at Villanova under the guidance of Jay Wright. And that group, we all know here in Philadelphia, had an enormous amount of pressure on them. They got past those first 2 rounds that first weekend, beating Iowa in a game at the Barclays Center, and then the rest is history from there. Everyone's going to remember that pass by Artest to Chris Jenkins for the 3 and the win to win the national championship game. You have to be one proud papa about your son, because that was some team with the amount of pressure that they had to overcome to going out there and win the whole thing this year, Mike.
Yeah, no, they were amazing. Probably the greatest NCAA game of all time as well. Just
unbelievable.
That was like a heavyweight fight, back and forth. Lead changes and shot making, and just incredible effort. I would have felt that way had Villanova lost. Obviously, I'm happy they won. It's just great. It was great being there with them and through that and experiencing it. And Jay's just done an amazing job there.
So what do you know about this Artest guy? He's a pretty darn good player. I saw him play in high school. Was 17 of 17 from the free throw line in one game and had 30-plus points in a playoff game. How do you think he'll project at that next level? Do you think he is an NBA player, or do you see him going overseas?
Well, a lot of people may not think so, but I do. Just like I thought Darren Hilliard was an NBA player, I told people last year he wasn't on anybody's draft board. And I started talking to guys, and I would say, guys, I'm just telling you, I've seen this guy play a lot. He's an NBA guy. He defends 1, 2, and 3. He can play in pick and roll. He knows how to play, curl action, making shots and making plays off of it. And he plays big in big games. He scores, points in a lot of their big victories. Same thing with Arch. I think Arch, if I had a team, he would appeal to me. Incredible leadership, very good shooter, great decision maker, amazing effort, and he's a lot bigger than you think. People look on the floor and I think he's small. He's close to 6'4". So I think he's got a shot. He should be in, certainly. I think he'll have a chance to get drafted, and I think he can stick with the team.
Now, moving on to the playoffs. Last night, the Warriors were without Steph Curry for another game. They lost to Houston. Harden hits that shot down the stretch, and now the Warriors are up 2-1 in that series. Do you see any other final besides the Warriors or the Cavs, or do you like another team to represent either one of those conferences?
Well, I think that the West is going to be tough. Obviously without Steph, it's a different picture for Golden State. There's a bunch of teams, not a bunch of teams, but I think the top 4 teams should hold chalk and be a great kind of Final Four in the Western Conference between Oklahoma City, Golden State, the Clippers, and San Antonio. As far as the East is concerned, I do see Cleveland coming out of the East, and I think depending on how well their big three, if they can stay healthy and play together, I don't think you can count them out. I still think Golden State, with a healthy Steph Curry, I think Golden State is the favorite.
And who do you like to win that finals if it's the Warriors and the Cavs?
I like Golden State.
So they would repeat under Steve Kerr. So that'd be back-to-back championships for him in his first 2 years coaching in the National Basketball Association with the Warriors. So last one here before we let you run. Steph Curry, I can't use enough adjectives to describe how great of a player he is. 402 three-point makes this year in the regular season. Is he the best shooter that you've ever seen since you've had so much experience with basketball?
Yeah, I don't give that mantle up lightly. I feel like along the way that I was a great shooter and I still shoot the ball well, but he is the best shooter I've ever seen. His numbers statistically, as far as, what he puts up and how he gets them and how he can create his own shot and the separation he gets in plays. And the way he finishes right, left, and he's not bad from like 35 feet plus.
Well, Coach, we appreciate the time today. Best of luck at Tulane, and I'm sure you'll be getting into the gym very early in the morning to try to keep off that weight from all that good New Orleans food. So thanks for a few minutes.
Tell Fran to take it easy on me my first year for sure. All right.
Will do. Thanks so much.